Um, I'm writing a novel. Welcome back to the channel. This is going to be the start of I don't know what. Okay, so let's back up here. First of all, can we talk about like the new setup of my room? I love it. It doesn't feel crowded anymore. All my Party Princess stuff is now where my desk used to be. And yes, I'm a 20-year-old woman who still sleeps with stuffed animals. Don't come at me. It's fine. So I have been writing basically my entire life. One of my earliest memories is literally being at my grandparents' house and writing stories on like their word processor. Honestly, it was probably like the early days of like Microsoft Word, probably like WordPad. I think that's what it was called, something like that. And I had stories saved on there, and like whenever I would go over there, I would like continue working on whatever it was that I was writing. And that evolved into eventually writing fan fiction for Once Upon a Time. Go check out my Wattpad. It's on there. I wrote so many things about Once Upon a Time, like inserting myself into like the Once Upon a Time universe. It was crazy. It was crazy, y'all. And that evolved into writing fan fiction for Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, for Glee, Penny Dreadful, which is now resulting in the musical I've been trying to write the last couple of years based on Penny Dreadful. We will eventually figure that out. The script is fully written, it's just the songs. And guys, songwriting is really hard. It's definitely not like writing like fiction. So I've always wanted to write like a novel of like my own ideas. It's just when you're young, like you have some ideas, but then like they almost end up being like exactly like what is already out there. But obviously with life experience, you eventually get ideas. So a community theater near me is doing Bonnie and Clyde, the musical. I'm auditioning for it next week. And I've known about the musical for like a couple years, but like I've never even listened to it. I've obviously known who Bonnie and Clyde are. All I knew about Bonnie and Clyde was that I honestly didn't even know they were a couple. But I just knew they were this man and woman who were on a crime spree back in the 1930s, and they got shot up in their car and then they died. That's all I knew. So when this theater announced that they were doing Bonnie and Clyde, I was like, that'd be an interesting show to do. I'll look more into it once like they post more like audition materials and stuff, because they do have you audition with stuff from the show. So they posted that during my spring break back in March. It's May now. And Bonnie and Clyde has become my new obsession, and they have also become my new history rabbit hole. And through my time of research about Bonnie and Clyde and also getting ready for this audition, which guys, I really want to be Bonnie. She's like now one of my dream roles. I've come to find out that a lot of how they have been depicted in the media, especially Bonnie, is not who they were. And as someone who, you know, like I will say, like I have, like Bonnie and I, we have a lot in common. Like she wanted to be, I've heard Hollywood, she wanted to work in Hollywood, and I've also heard that she wanted to be on Broadway. So she obviously wanted to be an actress. She was a singer, and or she wanted to be a singer, and she was a poet. She had poems published. And while I may not be a poet, I love writing fiction. So that, and I also think Bonnie Parker is a perfect example of what happens when you get caught up with the wrong guy. Now, people have told me, Rachel, she knew what she was doing. Like, she most likely knew right from wrong, and she decided to choose wrong. And I could agree with that. She was 19 years old when she met Clyde. I mean, like, what do we know when we're 19 years old? She was very young. She was in her early 20s during like their crime spree. When they died, she was only 23 years old. And as someone who went through a toxic relationship, obviously we were not doing the shit that Bonnie and Clyde were doing, but I can somewhat sympathize with Bonnie Parker. And I have joked to my friends and family, if I get Bonnie in this production of Bonnie and Clyde, if this girl wants to like be my sleep paralysis demon, I'll chat with her. I'll be like, hey girl, let's have a chat. But ooh, girly, why did you fall in love with Clyde Barrow? Why? Because y'all, she was beautiful. She was really pretty. If you've seen like really good colorized photos of her, she was really pretty. But anyways, this is not me glorifying the crimes of Bonnie and Clyde. And in fact, I've come to find out that Bonnie was she was in the getaway car. And yes, there are pictures of her holding guns, but they were like stage photos, like goofing around or whatever. And allegedly she was afraid of guns. I don't know. So, now you're probably asking, Rachel, are you just writing a novel about Bonnie and Clyde? Because that's been done. I know it's been done. I know. You know why I know? Because I've been reading books. I read one book literally called Bonnie that was in Bonnie's, well, it wasn't first POV. I can't remember the author's name right now. Editing me, put it in. I read that. I read a fictionalized take of Bonnie and Clyde, which was literally like the same book I just read. This one I'm currently reading by Jenny Walsh. It's a duology. It's called Becoming Bonnie, and there are some things that are fictionalized and that are not historically accurate, but like I'm kind of down with it right now. It's pretty good. And I know there are probably more out there. Hell, there's probably some in Clyde's perspective, but I'm not interested in that guy. So, okay, here we go. I have the title, but I'm not going to say the title. It's all kind of a working title as well. I don't know, but we're calling it Project Bonnie. And this novel, potentially duology, I want it to be a duology. First of all, I know I look like a mess. It is 11:50 at night on the 4th of July. I just got done with an Elsa event. It's fine, we do not care. I am interrupting here because I have realized, as I've been in the stages of writing, and especially now getting into draft 2 of Project Bonnie, I probably should not spoil the entire context of my book if I ever want to get this published. So, this is how I'm going to pitch it to you guys. Bonnie and Clyde, split POV, split timeline, Bonnie and Clyde back in the 1930s, and a new modern couple named Blair and Cade in 2024. Is going to be in first POV in both timelines. 1930s is going to be with Bonnie, 2024 is going to be with Blair, and they both have a lot of similarities. Cade and Clyde have a lot of similarities, and Blair Parker, yes, she has the same last name as Bonnie, and Cade Barrow, you get the gist. Blair has been in love with Bonnie Parker's story since high school. She did a history project on Bonnie Parker for her junior year of U.S. history, and ever since then she's always just been entranced by Bonnie Parker's story. And she is also a writer, and she wants to write a book about Bonnie and Clyde in Bonnie's perspective because she wants to give Bonnie her chance to shine. Cade, on the other hand, has always had an infatuation with Clyde Barrow, and through the story and through their relationship, while also flashing back and forth between the past and the present, Cade decides to take Blair on a road trip to give her a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to go follow the steps of Bonnie and Clyde. You can only imagine what's going to happen. And they are not committing the crimes that Bonnie and Clyde did commit, but Cade is almost trying to recreate some things, and there's a reason why, and that is because of the end of the book. There's a lot of weird similarities between both couples, a lot of things that Blair starts to catch on to, but she kind of shrugs it off. And I want to tell you guys why, but it's gonna blow the whole point of the book. Only those who know me in real life know. And I want to tell you guys, but I promise that if I ever get this published, it will be worth the wait of, why I'm keeping this hidden from you guys. I think it's genius. There has never been anything done like this before with Bonnie and Clyde. So I'm super excited. So there's my pitch. And instead of a duology, I believe it's going to be a trilogy. But obviously I just have to get through book 1 first. So anyways, I'm gonna let Past Me, which I know I said this video was recorded in May. I believe it was recorded in late April because my audition for Bonnie and Clyde was on May 3rd. Yes. So I don't think it was filmed in May. I think it was more like late April. Anyways, I'm gonna shut up and I'm gonna let Past Me, take it over again. I'm having such a hard time trying to decide if I want to write this in first POV or third. And I've written a prologue and the first chapter in first point of view, but now I'm working on chapter 2, which is back in Bonnie's perspective. And the prologue, I didn't have that hard of a time writing in her point of view, and in Blair's point of view, I didn't have a hard time because that's a new character. But now I'm back with Bonnie, and especially I'm back with Bonnie leading up to her meeting Clyde. And I wish more was known about, fake my costume rack for my business. I wish more was known about her life before Clyde, because really what we know about Bonnie is what we know from her time with Clyde, and even then it's so hard to find who she really was besides what the media made her out to be. And I'm having such a hard time, and I think I'm also having such a hard time trying to figure out who she was, while also figure out who she truly was, and also going with who I think she was. But it's I think it's because I'm such a history geek, and I love when things are so accurate to history that I don't want to mess this up. I don't need Bonnie Parker haunting me from the death. Even though I've joked that if I get Bonnie in a production of Bonnie and Clyde, that hey, if she wants to haunt me, she can. Let's have a conversation. But I mean that in a way of she could sit down and be hey, this is who I was. Where I don't want to do something wrong. Because she's already portrayed in a way that I don't think she was, and it appears that she was upset with how she was portrayed in the media. And I think at the end of the day, Bonnie Parker was a woman who loved her man, but also I think I have heard that at the end she was depressed and she was drinking a lot, and I can only imagine why. So I think Bonnie Parker was, or she had a whole bunch of dreams that she wanted to pursue, and then she wasn't able to. And the whole point with my novel, and what I hope to do a sequel with, which would obviously be completely in Blair's point of view with how I'm planning on ending this, because I'm planning on ending, oh no, wait, I can't I can't answer that, that'd be a spoiler. I know how I want this to end. I know how I want it to end in the past, which is obviously with Bonnie and Clyde being killed. But it's just, why did I get into this? Book 2 would be completely Blair. Oh, I don't remember. I'm getting scared. And I think it's because I'm realizing now, hey, you have a really good idea, and you're doing so well with plotting it, that, like, I'm getting so scared. And I find myself, this is usually what happens, when I'm scared about something good, I get cold feet, and I almost want to pull back. This has happened so many times before with, like, good things that I've done in my life. Different shows that I've auditioned for, my business. I got cold feet about my business, I think, like, a week into it, and I was like, no, you gotta keep going. And I think that's how I am with this. And no one prepares you for the anxiety of writing a book, especially historical fiction. Okay, it's been about a couple weeks since I filmed anything for this vlog. So it is now Tuesday, May 12th. I think the last time I filmed was when I started writing Project Bonnie. So it's been almost a month now, about, I think, like 3 weeks later. Currently working my way towards the end of Act 1. I'm currently sitting at 24,000 words, or around 24,000 words, something like that. And things are getting interesting. They're getting intense already. There's little things that I already want to change, and I'm trying so hard to not go back and be like, rewrite, add, because I'm like, that's what draft 2 is going to be for. It's going to be fine. But I've already, taken notes of some things along the way. I have my notebook that I got. Well, I guess it's more of a journal that I got today. Usually I don't go with this type of journal. I like spiral bound, and I like bigger ones as well. But I was like, it's got like that 1930s like vibe to it. And I know Bonnie Parker was a poet, and I could see her, if she had a journal while on the run with Clyde, or, before she went off with Clyde, I could really see her having a journal similar to this, maybe a little bit more worn, especially during, while she was on her crime spree with Clyde. So I picked this because I'm like, it's very fitting. And I just put a little sticky note that says Project Bonnie. I think it's reversed for you guys. I don't know. And there's a little pocket, so I stuck the sticky note in there, and then I stuck it on there. So there she is. But yeah, we're vibing. I hope to have draft 1 done by the end of summer. I think I will, though. But yeah, we're chucking along. My goal, word count wise, for this novel right now, I still need to calculate the minimum word count for each chapter, which I have not met at all. I stopped about halfway through Act 2 the last time I was calculating word counts, and already it was saying I should be over 70,000 words. So that probably means I should be around 90,000 words. I don't think I'm going to meet that in draft 1. My problem with fiction is, even though it's my bread and butter, I go very quick. I go boom, 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 boom. That's what I need to get out. Dialogue. That's it. We're done. I have a really hard time writing descriptions, and I don't know why. You would think, as a very artistic person, I would go into detail about how people look, about the environment, the type of clothes that they would be wearing. I'm not. It's one of the worst things that I will write about. And I need to learn. My problem is that I came from fanfiction writing. So the bulk of my fanfiction writing comes from the TV series Once Upon a Time. So I got it in my head. I was like, oh, well, people who are reading this know Once Upon a Time, so they know what... they know what Storybrooke looks like. They know what Emma Swan looks like. They know what Mr. Gold looks like. They know what Regina looks like. And now it's, my own original work. So these people are not going to know what Blade, oh my god, Blair and Cade look like. They can know what Bonnie and Clyde looked like. Obviously, they were the photographs. But, you know, we have old, grainy, black and white photographs. Yes, we do have colorized images of them, but it calls into question sometimes how accurate those colored images are, especially with, like, Bonnie Parker's hair color. Bonnie Parker was a strawberry blonde, but sometimes some photographs make her look completely blonde or a brunette. But she was, in fact, strawberry blonde. And, you know, there's like some really good pictures of Clyde, and sometimes there's not. It's just really, it really depends. So yeah, things like that. I'm also setting the modern day timeline, the college that Blair and Cade meet at. I'm setting it at my university. I think I already said that before, but I really wanted to make this feel authentic. And I haven't been to that many college campuses. My real only experience with a college campus is my campus. So I knew that I could make my university and my college town feel real, because I'm there all the time. I know all those buildings. I know where Greek Row is. I know where the student center is, the library, the dorm hall or the residence hall that Blair lives in, the frat house, the frat house that Cade is part of. I've been to that frat house. I know what the basement of that house looks like. I know how their foyer looks like. I know what the outside of their house looks like. I know what Greek Row looks like. I know the vibes of Greek Row, kind of. I wasn't there. I only went to a couple parties last year. So I really wanted to capture that. However, the problem is I have Blair coming from Evanston, Illinois. If you don't know what Evanston, Illinois is, it's a suburb of Chicago, north of the city. It is home to Northwestern University. That is where I have Blair coming from. Cade is from Chicago. I obviously do not live in Chicago. Yes, I've been to Chicago many times in my life. I've spent the nights in Chicago. My ex-boyfriend is from Chicago. So I spent nights on the north side of Chicago in the residence areas of the city. But like I don't truly know all Chicago because I'm not there 24/7. Luckily for me, my novel is not set in the city 24/7. However, Bonnie and Clyde, were off running in the southern parts of the United States. I've never been to Texas. I've never been to Oklahoma. I've been to Missouri, but not Joplin, Missouri. I've been to Iowa, but not where they were at in Iowa. I've never been to New Mexico. So a lot of places where Bonnie and Clyde I've never been. I would love to go, but I just don't have the time and money to go. So I'm very much relying on videos, Google Maps, Google Street View, videos on YouTube. I've also read a couple of novels centered around Bonnie and Clyde, especially Jenny Walsh's duology about Bonnie. That was amazing. Book one is Becoming Bonnie, which was a fictional retelling of Bonnie's life before she met Clyde, and then they were side by side, which is about Bonnie's life with Clyde. That was an amazing duology. I highly recommend going and reading that. It was really, really good. I also read a book called it was just called Bonnie. I can't remember the author's name off the top of my head right now, but that was also really good. So I've read and been researching a lot about, Bonnie and Clyde down in Texas and the southern United States. But I've never been to these places, and it's so hard. I've been to the South before, but not that part of the country. I've been more on the southeastern parts of the United States, so think Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, and Florida. But yeah, this has been really interesting, but that is just my one problem with writing this. But I'll figure it out. I don't see it being a huge problem in the long run. I think right now it is a problem, but I am slowly trying to figure that out, and it's gonna be okay. But yeah, that's where we're at right now. I can't even remember the last time I even recorded for this writing vlog, and I haven't even started yet, so I don't know at what point, like, y'all are gonna even see this. Obviously you're seeing it at some point. I don't know if I'm just waiting till the end of draft 1 to put, maybe that's what I'm doing. But I think that's what we're gonna do now. So I can't even remember, like I said, the last time. Hold up, I am home alone. Ring says there's someone in my driveway. What is going on? Okay, everything is fine. It was just someone going down the alley. So I can't remember the last time I even recorded anything for this vlog. I've been so busy. This weekend is like the first time in like a month since I've been able to like chill out between princessing. I was in a show last month, or closed at the end of last month. It was really sad. I'm in the thick of orientation programming for my university, so there's been a lot going on. And through all this, I've been checking away at my book. I am happy to say that at this point, today is June 13th of 2026. I am at 44,350 words, and I started this draft in the middle of April, so it's been almost 2 months now, which is really crazy to think about. And I started developing like the idea for this book at like the end of March, early April, something like that. So I am really proud of myself. Sorry, it's like 9:30 at night. Anyways, the more I write this and the more I research, I obviously did research before my book, or before going into it. I watched so many like Bonnie and Clyde like documentaries. I watched this like I guess it was a mini series, but it's like a whole big movie on Amazon Prime. Like this like remake, or not remake. Yeah, I guess it was a mini series on the History Channel back in like 2013 about Bonnie and Clyde. I watched that. I've been obsessed with the musical. I've still yet to watch the 1967 Bonnie and Clyde film that like everyone talks about. Like my grandpa, when he found out I was auditioning for that production of Bonnie and Clyde, he was like, oh my god, well, have you watched the movie? And like even after I got cut from that show, but I told him that like I had gotten called back for Bonnie and everything, he was still talking about that movie. So I still need to watch it at some point. One of my English professors last year, or this past semester, told me I had to watch it when I started like getting caught up in my Bonnie and Clyde craziness. And I've read a whole bunch of like books about Bonnie and Clyde as well, mainly in Bonnie's perspective, but there was one that was about the both of them. I've read a little bit of Blanche's autobiography, and Blanche is literally what I just decided to record this clip about her and Buck. So for those who do not know, Clyde had an older brother named Buck. Well, he went by the Buck. His name was Marvin. He was 7 years older than Clyde. No, wait, 6. 6 years older than Clyde. And yeah, yes, 6 years older than Clyde. 7 years older than Bonnie. Yes. And he had a wife named Blanche. Now, my introduction to Bonnie and Clyde was through the musical, of course, and I thought Blanche was older than Bonnie, because in the script it says that Blanche is like in her mid to late 20s, or can be played like mid 20s to 30s or whatever. So I was like, okay, yeah, Blanche is older than Bonnie. Never thought to do any research into it, none of that. So when I just went to start looking more into Buck and Blanche, because I had gotten to the point where Bonnie finally meets Buck and Blanche. Sorry, just lost my train of thought. Oh, I looked up Buck and I looked up Blanche to get better physical descriptions of them. And then I see how old Blanche was. Blanche was younger than Bonnie. By like a couple months. But still, Blanche was younger than Bonnie. Which makes this so much sadder, because Buck was killed like a couple months after him and Blanche joined Bonnie and Clyde, leaving Blanche a young widow. So Bonnie was 22. Okay, but Blanche was 22. Her and Bonnie were both 22 when Buck died, but Bonnie was about to turn 23 in a couple months. So yeah, so Blanche was 22. So obviously a young widow, very, very young widow, very traumatic what she went through. She also tried to keep Buck away from joining back up with Clyde, and of course she went with him because she was so devoted to him and everything. And it's kind of like Bonnie, you know, perfect example of what happens to someone when they get caught up with the wrong person. What I came to find out about Buck was that he was married twice before he ever met Blanche, and had divorced both of those women before he ever met Blanche. And he had 3 children between those 2 marriages. From my understanding, both of those marriages resulted in children. Is that correct? I know he had 3 in total. Yeah, it just says had 3 children by those marriages. My question: where are Buck's children in all of this? Obviously with the mothers, but I did not know that Buck had children. Like, what? My mind is literally blown, which it makes sense. So Buck was married in his teens and early 20s before Blanche. You know, that was common back then. Bonnie got married to her ex-husband, who was technically still her husband when she died, because she didn't divorce this guy when she was 16. So very common back then. But where are these children at? Where are these children at? And then it's like, well, wait a minute. Like, these children had to have had children themselves. So, you know, the great-great-grandchildren of Buck Barrow are probably still walking around somewhere down in Texas. Like, if they had children. I don't know. I'm so confused. Mind you, I'm looking at Buck's Wikipedia page right now, so this could just be baloney. My plan is to look deeper into this, even if I decide to mention it at all in my book, which I already need to go back, because literally one of the first things I just had Clyde say to Buck, because he hasn't seen Buck in a couple years between prison and being on the road with Bonnie, I literally just had Clyde ask Buck, had any kids yet with the wife? Or children? That's literally all he says, children? Because I'm thinking with Blanche. And he says no. And then Clyde said something along the lines of like, oh, he's not ready to be an uncle anyway. And then Buck says, well, you're going to have to be an uncle someday, which Clyde later went on to be after death because of his younger siblings. But Clyde's already an uncle. He's already an uncle, meaning Bonnie, even though her and Clyde were never married, she was technically an aunt. So the more I learn about these two and their families and all the crap that was going on, I just continue to be like, my mind just continues to be blown, and like the more sad I get, because like their story is so tragic. Everything about it is so tragic. Not just Bonnie and Clyde, not just Buck and Blanche, but their families. Like their families were arrested after they died because they were kind of accomplices. So Bonnie and Clyde would come back to West Dallas to like visit their family for like holidays and stuff. And the families would obviously hide them. So they were all arrested. I believe one of Clyde's younger sisters, I think she was only in jail for like a month or two, something like that. Because I did my research on her, because she pops up in an early chapter in the book. But it's so sad. It's so sad. And like, I feel bad because through my writing, of course, Bonnie is absolutely in love with Clyde, but I'm trying to show like that Clyde was also the bad guy here, but I also can't help but start to feel bad for Clyde. And it's like, no, but it really is. But you know what? Clyde got himself caught into that. That was his choice. But it's just, and poor Bonnie. At the end of the day, poor Bonnie. Poor Bonnie. Like, I have joked with people, if I woke up in the middle of the night and Bonnie Parker was standing at the end of my bed, I would freak out, because that'd be creepy as hell. Second of all, I would be like, hey girl. Third of all, I would be like, hey girl, we need to sit down right now. Let's talk about your life decisions. Here's to hoping that she would pop up. She would not pop up in the state that her body was when she was buried. Well, they like touched her up, but you know, when she was like shot, like all like all shot to hell. Don't mind the spot dot on my chin. My acne's been so bad. Anyways, this is just, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's really, really crazy. Anyways, back to writing. That's all. Here's to my next check-in in a month. Hello from my car. It is 2 days after, I think the last, clip, yeah. I finished draft 1. Almost 66,000 words. I don't know how I wrote 30,000 words this week, and that almost sounds like not even real. And I feel like some people might think, oh my god, she used AI. I did not use AI. Yeah, I finished draft 1, which is insane. So I have to drop off a book at the library, but I'm actually going to go pick up draft 1 right now from Walgreens. I use like their printing services, because I sent 2 other documents over there for, I can't remember if I mentioned it already in this vlog or not, because I mean I've been recording since April. I am currently going to school for a degree in English, with an emphasis in secondary education. I start my clinicals in the fall. I had some paperwork that I had to print out for that because I'm meeting my cooperating teacher on Friday for coffee. I'm really excited to meet her. But I also sent those documents over to Walgreens to pick up as well. So I thought it would be very fitting to end this vlog by going to pick up my first draft of book 1 of Project Bonnie. It'll probably be there. It's gonna be 3 books total. I already know it's going to be. Before I said maybe 3 books. It's going to be 3 books now. I already have my plans brewing in my head for book 2, but I know I probably will not work on that until like another year from now. That's when I'm guessing I will be querying this book, which is really crazy to think about. Oh my god. But yeah, almost 66,000 words, about 230 pages in Google Docs. I would think with like the way the like books are usually printed, I would think like it might be more pages than that. I would think. I don't know. I'm just glad to have 65,000 words of my own work produced in draft 1. I thought it was going to take me a couple drafts to even get to that because of just how I write, but I guess not. So I will check in with you guys when I get back in my car. Well, first I have to get to Walgreens. Then I get back in my car and I'm going to see this work of mine. Okay, I just picked it up. I have a feeling this is it. Yeah. Scooch back so you guys can see it. This is really surreal. There it is. $65,980 words. I might cry. My god. I wrote all that. Wow. That is just, oh. You know, when I came up with the idea for this book, you know, like I've said, I was in the middle of audition prepping for Bonnie and Clyde at this community theater, and it's crazy to think that if I hadn't took the time to audition prep, sorry, I'm just gonna check my other order while I'm here, and then I have to go run to another store to get binders because I know they're gonna be more expensive at Walgreens than they were gonna be at Walmart. Is this it? Yes. Perfect. To think you know, if that theater had never done Bonnie and Clyde, and if I had never audition prepped for that show, I wouldn't be here right now, which is really crazy to think about. And even though I didn't get into that production, I was called back for Bonnie, and I got cut ultimately, which is totally fine. You know, like, there's a reason why I got cut from that, and I think I know why now, and that was so I was free to completely do my own version of Bonnie. Of course, when you do a show, you know, you bring part of yourself to a character, but you also bring the director's vision of that character to life. And I don't know what that director's vision of Bonnie was. I think she wanted to humanize Bonnie, but I don't know. I don't know if she wanted to do what a lot of Hollywood has done, and that is villainize Bonnie. I don't think that, just because the musical doesn't villainize Bonnie, and I don't know how you could villainize the musical version of Bonnie. I don't know how you could do that, or maybe that's just because I feel bad for the poor girl. So I don't see myself ever villainizing her. But I have written fan fiction my entire life, my entire life. I started with writing Once Upon a Time fan fiction. I've written fan fiction for Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, Glee. I wrote a fan fiction version of Penny Dreadful, which I am now turning into a musical. More about that eventually. That's not on my radar right now. As much as I would love for it to be right now, Project Bonnie is my priority, or as far as writing projects go. And those fanfictions have always been long. What I've done with those fanfictions is take the fanfictions and then insert my original characters. My Once Upon a Time fanfiction gives Regina 2 daughters, one with Daniel and one with King Leopold, Snow White's father. And I've rewritten all the seasons with them. And when I adapted the 3rd season with them, that fanfiction ended up being like over 90,000 words. So I knew it was possible, but I never in a million years, I always wanted to write something original. I always wanted to, but I just didn't think I had the means to do so. Whenever I tried to think of original ideas, it ended up being almost a copy of someone else's story. And the Bonnie and Clyde idea just came to me naturally. And of course, what made it easy with Project Bonnie is Bonnie and Clyde were real people. They had their personalities. They, you know, there are the historical events. There's their lives before they became, you know, Bonnie and Clyde, when they were just Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow. But, you know, like, I really got to play with them, and that was fun. And even as much as I hate Clyde, I found myself humanizing even him and realizing, as bad of a guy as he was, at the end of the day, he was still human, and he was still a kid. And there's a scene that I have, I'm gonna make this quick because I do have to run to Walmart, and then I do have to go to my internship. I'm a student intern for production of Finding Nemo Jr. this summer. There's a scene that I write. For those who know Bonnie and Clyde history, They spent 13 days in Joplin, Missouri, before they had a shootout there. And there's a scene that I write between Bonnie and Clyde right before the shootout, and it's where they fight. They have a huge fight because Bonnie realizes Clyde's not putting an end to being who he is and committing crimes and robbing places. And they get into a huge fight that goes from verbal to physical, because historically in Joplin they did have physical fights according to Blanche's book. And there's something so human about that, even though it's so toxic. And that was one of my intents with this book, was to not only still romanticize Bonnie and Clyde, not really romanticize, but take that romanticism away from them and show, no, there was a lot of toxicity there. But I have a scene, it's the second to last Bonnie chapter, where they talk after Joplin, and they're still fighting, but neither one of them wins that fight, and they realize they're not who they were when they first met. Bonnie and Clyde first met in 1929. Joplin happened in 1933. Obviously, a lot of time. They were young when they met. Bonnie was only 19, Clyde was only 20, and by the time Joplin happened, Clyde was 24, and Bonnie was going to be 23 in a few months. So, a lot of growing up, and a lot of mistakes being had. So, that being said, I'm going to go grab some binders for not only this draft, but also my documents for my clinical. Thank you so much for coming along with me as I wrote draft 1. I'm going to leave draft 1 to rest before going into draft 2 revisions in a month. So, yeehaw. That's kind of body. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you. Not in the writing vlog, most likely a princess vlog next, so I will see you then. Bye now.